Thank you very much. I'm Eric Kabera. Many people know me from that name. I'm a father of three, two girls and one boy. And I'm famously known now as a preacher's husband. But I'm a filmmaker. I'm a producer, director, and founder of the Kwetu Film Institute and the Rwanda Cinema Centre. And I've been running this for the last 27 or 26 years. I think I've always been a talkative guy. I've always been vibrant in listening to old men talking, telling stories, or listening to news pieces, or listening to radios. So I've always been inclined when it comes to the media. So even at a younger age, they used to call me like, the younger journalist. Even in my classes, whenever they would teach us stuff, English was one of my favorite subjects. I mean, being born and raised in the DRC, former Zaire, it was kind of sort of unheard of. I mean, I was born in the 70s, so today's my birthday. And so I'm 52 today. And so growing up in the late 80s, 90s, early 90s, speaking some English, people go, where are you going to take your English to? Those are the elements that triggered my interest the most as far as learning about journalism and media, listening to many various media organizations. Yeah. My career really started off with the production of the movie 100 Days, which I co-produced with Nick Hughes. We made that about 20 years ago in Kibuye, and with the Basesteros, with the community that saw literally hell descend on them, and we wanted to recreate that particular scenario into a movie. And 100 Days literally unleashed all the other movies to be made on the genocide against the Tutsi, and that's what people sort of remembers me for, and my implication within the framework of telling the story of genocide against the Tutsi and the legacy of memory in Rwanda. So I continued on that path, and I went on and made other documentaries, Keepers of Memory, Through My Eyes. The latest one that is circulating is Intore, which I made to reflect on the journey of Rwanda 20 years after the genocide. And I wanted to say, like, how do you reflect on a country that has gone through a genocide and that is going through a development phase, a rebuilding, reconciliation. I could take buildings, I could take roads, I could take the infrastructure development, but I chose one particular element, which is music and dance and culture. Because culture is literally the soul of a nation, of a community, and things like that. So I use that device, I would call it a device or a tool, to translate literally the recovery of Rwanda through music, arts, and culture. And dance was one of the elements that I chose. And so in the documentary, you find the Ngarun Zongari, the Ballet National, and other prominent figures who are in the arts and culture in Rwanda. So it's just one of the elements. There's so many elements of reconstruction and rebuilding of the nation, but that's just one of the elements that I chose. Filmmaking is a difficult process. Most of the young men and women whom we trained, sometimes we train them and then they don't get a job. They look at you and it's like, did you actually lie to us? So, but it's a passion, and it's a vision that people need to take it as a legacy, or as a commitment, or as a passion, also as a vocation. That's the word that I wanted to use. So I found filmmaking, or the path of me making movies, or training people to make movies, or translating Rwanda through movies as a vocation, as a passion. And so I've been still making movies, documentaries and features. So I've one documentary that I've just completed. It's in the completion phase. It's called The Woman in Me. Again, it's an emblematic tool, if you like, to show Rwanda's development or trajectory of success through the eyes of women and girls, and the policy that have been put in place. And of course the challenges, because it's one thing, you set up the policies, you introduce the culture, but it's actually another thing to embark on a path of educating the people who are actually embracing this. So my film is actually observing that. It's like that kind of sort of a shift and tectonic kind of sort of a shift in the society, whereby women are empowered. It's like, what about the men, or are men educated enough to understand and to embrace this particular shift in the cultural settings and in the political framework, not only of Rwanda, but in Africa and around the world. So it's a bit of a global film. I'm not making this as just a local film, but Rwanda is literally the bedrock of the film. But at the end of the day, I have some producers back in Los Angeles who will embark and actually continue on this path to make it a TV series. So you have like The Woman in Me, Qatar, The Woman in Me, Saudi Arabia, The Woman in Me, Brazil, The Woman in Me, United States and UK, because there's the feminist movement that is going on, and there's have some resistance of some men who actually do not understand the impact and the benefits of all of this. So we need to create literally a platform where both genders and the two sides can communicate and look at each other in the eyes and say like, okay, there's a business path where everybody is gaining and have a kind of a philosophical, intellectual, political and economical kind of sort of components into it. So it's an equation. And sometimes those things are not put into places. There's a lot of emotions that gets involved. There's a lot of misconception, miseducation, and just lack of knowledge. And for me, by making this film, I'm actually learning as well. So that's the documentary I'm making. Towards the end of this year, depending, I'm in the last stage of post-production, but I've been making it for the last 2 years. So during the pandemic, when I was home alone, so I took my team, dedicated young team from Rwanda Cinema Centre and Kwetu Film Institute, so they dedicated their time, the equipment, and we filmed that, and we have a very, very beautiful reflection. Even though nobody will watch it, but I think I'll watch it because it's also some kind of a self-observation. It's inspired from my own experience, because each time I go to my wife's congregation, all my male friends, they go, hey, how do you do it? How do you dare and embrace the fact that you can go and sit in a church full of 2,000 women? So that's in itself is a reflection that I would love to share with people, but not only using my voice, but using other people's voices. So I have quite good, interesting characters and personalities. Yeah. I think it's really, really good because we've come a long way. Because before I used to go from RDB to Minispoc to all the institutions of the states to the NGOs, drumming, my drum, saying, please support Rwanda Film Festival this, education that. And that particular journey actually got grounded. So we managed to train over 600 young men and women, of which maybe 30% or 40% of them have actually been integrated into the media, audiovisual and film industry, quote unquote. We still have a long way to go to actually label it as a film industry, because you need studios, you need a huge investment, you need investment from the banking sector. We still need a government policy that will actually implement that and give incentives to the local filmmakers, to the foreign filmmakers as well, so who can come and bring in a lot of films to produce and to employ local people. But at the end of the day, the policies are being set in place. I mean, we now have the Rwanda Film Office set up at RDB, and so we have a mechanism that has been put in motion. But at the end of the day, there's still a lot of investment that will still be needed. For you to talk about a film industry, you need to have a couple studios or high-level producing partners or producers locally. I mean, we have technicians now. We have good cameramen, we have good sound engineers, we have a few directors who are very good, whose films have been projected internationally. But at the end of the day, all of that needs to be accompanied with the resources. Those are the kind of things that I'm doing. So I've spent about 1 year in Los Angeles trying to set up those kind of mechanisms in terms of creating a bridge between North America and Africa in general, but really the epicenter being Rwanda. So we've created something called the African Renaissance Collective, where we actually gather great minds of Africa and great minds of the US, African American and American in general, to tell them about the new narrative of Africa. And so we need, regardless of all the stories that have been told on the genocide against the Tutsi and on the crisis on the African continent, because those are stories that have actually been shared around the world, because still till today Africa is still very dark through the eyes of the Western world. As you've seen it, our president is always like, at the forefront of telling people, this is not who we are. This is so, and I'm now on a quest to make sure that, or to contribute, for that matter, to the journey of telling a new tale of Africa. It's a tale of hope, resilience, beauty, elegance, business. So maybe that's what you'll find in my next film, which is a feature film. It's a romantic comedy that is underway and that is under pre-production. And so we're talking to producers back in Los Angeles, here, other partners on the African continent, and other people who are listening to us who are interested in either financing or getting on board and having their names featured in a film whenever it's finished. So it's a journey of preaching to people the importance of these things, because film stays forever. Once you make a film and your name is engraved there, or your face is in the film, that film will stay forever. I may have a beautiful car, I may have a beautiful piece of land. The piece of land will be owned by somebody else, but once I've made a movie, or once I've created a piece of history, it stays forever. And mankind has always been influenced by storytelling and stories of mankind and of humanity. Yeah, there is growth, and there's still a lot of challenges. The growth is the fact that you see a lot of talent. So like, it's no longer me, Eric Kabera, who used to be there like 15, 20 years ago, going in everybody's door and knocking and say like, give us money, give us support. There are now so many young men and women who are doing this. And I believe it's very, very important for people actually to embrace this, to see that it's a good opportunity for having many storytellers. I mean, I no longer have the burden to take my camera and film every single thing about the new Rwanda's development. So even for me, I go on social media and I see all these great, beautiful pictures and beautiful videos out of Rwanda. And what I do is actually I share them with my partners internationally, because one of the things that I have maybe within my network is actually a track record of individuals or practitioners or professionals who are in the audiovisual sector who wants to see something new. So it doesn't have to be coming from me necessarily, but it's a video that have been taken by one of the influencers or social media influencers. So those are the kind of things that makes me really, really proud to feel that there's a progress. People know how to frame, they know how to time the source of the light, they know how to do camera movements, they know how to create these fancy camera work and beautiful tales. So the next challenge is literally to add it with great storytelling, and that requires a lot of time. I mean, for people to be great writers, you need to have a culture of reading, culture of cinema, and culture of storytelling. But the beauty is Rwanda has got the culture of storytelling. We are natural storytellers. So once you combine all of that and you take all the elements into into consideration so that you can actually respect the power of filmmaking and the power of the dynamic storytelling, because it's an industry. It's very, very complex. You know, filmmaking is not just putting a camera and then going out there and saying that you've just captured somebody, like, you know, I'm being captured here. It's you know, there's so many elements, you know. So you have to capture, like, you know, where do I live? Where did I come from? And what motivated me to do this? So there's so many elements that makes there's so many elements that make a great story to be a great story. I mean, some of them have gone on international stages, but at the end of the day, you know, you need to tell your own story, and you need to have people actually believe in the story that you're telling. And then once you believe in your story, everybody else will. Because most of the films that I've made anyway, you know, they started from within my own belief or understanding. Like, for instance, when I went and filmed or followed Inganzongari in their rehearsals under the rain, when there's no electricity, the challenges and things like that. For me, that was the essence of the struggle of life and achievement of life, and the path that I wanted to share with my audience. First and foremost for myself. I mean, I'm sorry, filmmakers are very, very, they're very, very selfish. It's like writing a story. Once you write a story, before you write, you're not writing to impress others. You're writing because it's speaking to you in your heart. So I don't think that I will make a movie particularly thinking of the other people, how they will perceive it. I have to feel it. I have to visualize it. I have to believe in it. It has to be believable. It has to speak to me before it speaks to somebody else. Because at the end of the day, each frame or each statement will have to reflect what I really, really believe in. Sometimes people try to make movies to simply impress others, and it doesn't simply work. So, but at times, markets drive you to do something. But even though market will define or push you to do something, I think it's very, very important for you, for that particular statement, for that particular story, to speak to you in your heart. So, like the next film I'm making, I totally believe that it's a film that I believe in, because I can visualize it. I can see exactly what it speaks to me in terms of visual, narrative, and statement I wanna send out. So those are the kind of elements that many people need to understand. Samuel Ishimwe has taken his films at Berlinale, and Joel Karekezi has taken his film at many other festivals internationally. I mean, the biggest challenge is, like, if you make a movie and then it wins awards, and what next? So there is something that is known as the bottom line in every industry. So it has to generate some finances, and that requires a lot of knowledge, and that requires a lot of investment, and that requires an entire policy and an entire framework. And one of the very few countries that actually had succeeded to embark on this path and become very successful is the United States, because that's where they have, like, a huge, vibrant film industry. You take the United States, you take India, and Asia now. They have literally come at the loggerhead to compete internationally with Hollywood movies. In other countries, you find states giving money and providing support to their local creatives and to their local filmmakers, so that their narratives are not necessarily taken away by the big wave of stories out of Hollywood. And that's why you find the Canadian Film Fund, the French Film Fund, the German Film Fund, all these funds that support international filmmakers from those countries. So, like, Africa needs to sort of create those kind of mechanisms, and I think that is getting into places, because you have banks such as Afrexim Bank that are looking at the potential of actually supporting the local film industries on the continent, so that Africa can actually be in a position to trade with Africa, or Africa should be in a position of communicating with Africa, because you find people leaving Gabon and going to France, but never finding a Gabonese going to Nigeria or going to Kenya or going to Tanzania, because literally the medium or the media does not actually project those places to be elegant, funky, beautiful, and things like that. And that's where the current Rwanda situation and leadership has created an impactful settings for people actually to embrace Africa. I think you see, the government cannot be at all fronts. You have to build roads, you have to build hospitals and things like that. And then film industry takes a lot of money. And most of the time whenever the money is given, you don't actually have the money back. So it's an emotional investment. And other countries have managed to do that because they know that culture has got a very strong impact in people's mindsets, in shifting mindsets, in shifting cultures and things like that. So the policy is being put in place, and the actions for sure it will follow. But in looking at in other African countries, I think Rwanda has done much better. I mean, they have supported some of the film festivals. They have supported myself in terms of creating a cohesive and understanding that this is something that they embrace. When the Academy of Motion Picture came to Rwanda, RDB welcomed them, took them on a tour, and presented them with a cocktail. So there's a warm, welcoming kind of sort of a effect that exists in Rwanda, and but that needs to be followed with a huge deployment of funds. Do we have those funds to be deployed in big numbers? The answer, I will not answer that. But I think we are on a good path once we have good projects. So at this particular stage, we're looking at what will be those projects that will actually have the impact locally and internationally. Of course, you need to have either pioneers or people who actually will encourage all the others, because if they see like Kivu succeeding or Joelka succeeding or Mutoni Wase or somebody else, right? They will be encouraged. They go, oh, if Linda has been successful, then I ought to be successful. So so we need to literally either support the role model, or the role model needs to be sustained. And I think it's there. I think it just needs a little bit of a push. And yeah, I think I see what you mean by there's less excitement, but I think there should be excitement once we have projects that actually project people on screen and celebrate them. Just like you have in music industry. Music industry, I think, has projected quite a number of celebrities on screen, and all of a sudden you have 10 others popping up, 10 other songs coming up. So it's the same. But for music and film is different, because music doesn't take so much time as to produce and to put it out there. For film, there's so many components that needs to be put in place. You're talking about the concept, you're talking about the writing, you're talking about the camera, you're talking about the lights, you're talking about the sound. So all these things need to be mastered for you to actually get it right. And even the basic investments can be quite minimal for you to get off the ground. But at the end of the day, I think it has so much impact. And there's so much interest actually from the rest of the world vis-a-vis Rwanda, because everybody wants to know what is the next narrative out of Rwanda. Thank you for the question. Kwetu is still there. We just moved from the building, from the location. So we're in a smaller location at this particular stage, and we are within all the grand project that we have. We are thinking of building a new settings where we'll put studios, we'll put a school, and all the arts and culture activities that will take place. Of course, the school and that particular dynamic create the vibrancy. But what I still believe, and where I'm pivoting, or what I'm thinking of doing, is actually most of the trainings take place on the job. So you have the component of the training program, but you also have a strong producing component. So once you have both of them, so people actually get to be introduced to the trade, but actually get to learn how it works in the field. So once they get trained and then actually they don't see things happening, so that does not actually complete all the training. So what I'm thinking, or what we're thinking within the structure, is actually to combine the two. We're actually doing what is known as master classes. So we pair our students, the few, so we take very few, and we pair them with our mentors, from Europe, from Asia, and from America mainly. It's done once every 3 months. We get like sporadic requests, and actually by this month we are sending about 12 students to Germany for an exchange program. So we have a selective model that we use for people who actually kind of stick to the vision, because we don't want just people to come and say, like, I want to be a celebrity, because that's what sometimes we used to do. But filmmaking is not being behind the camera, in front of the camera, but it's also being behind the camera. To know how to light, to know how to shoot, to know how to record sound, to know how to edit, to know even how to write stories. So those are the kind of elements that we give as tools to our prospective students and to the students that come forward to us. So we don't necessarily use the formula or sit down education, because if you like, education format has kind of sort of changed and has evolved. So we are actually partnering with a company, an organization called Media U. This is a setup back in Hollywood that trains practitioners and filmmakers and students all around the world, and Rwanda is on that platform, and many other platforms like that we plug in. So we just use our platform to plug in all the other international partners and educators and much more experienced people than ourselves, who believe in the same philosophy. It's a philosophy, it's a journey, it's a vocation. So it's like, it's like a parish from Rwanda and another parish from the Vatican. So it's those kind of connectivities. It's very interesting because, as I said, I spent about a year in Los Angeles doing all those kind of programs that I was talking about. And then when I came back, I was so pleased and blessed to see the entire older crew, or all the alumni of the Rwanda Cinema Centre coming together to actually continue the path, because they thought like, oh, Eric has gone to America, so the Rwanda Film Festival is dead, So they put themselves together, and now we've got a team of 12 people who are actually organizing the Rwanda Film Festival, because we haven't done it for the last 2 years since the pandemic, and we have accumulated over 3,000 films, which international filmmakers have sent to us under Film Freeway. And what has happened is, so they say, like, we want to continue this. They go like, okay, you got to look for the money, you got to look for the locations and things like that. So for the last 3 weeks, they've been actually preparing the logistics, the locations, and the venues and the date. And what we set up to launch, it will be in September. Literally 1 week before Kwetu and 1 week after Kwetu, so that we can actually tap into the possibilities of attracting those visiting Rwanda, and so that we can actually match the calendar. So those are the kind of things that we're thinking, how to complement on all the other cultural and celebratory calendars of the country within the framework of cultural promotion and cinema promotion. So it's in September. There's a team that is organizing it. I'm now overseeing, and just like the chair, and asking for support, going to hotels and asking them to host the film festival, going to places. But this is a call for people who want to support.